Hi, this is Danielle Peterson with Wild Soul Living. Today I'm going to be talking about the book Women Who Run with the Wolves, specifically chapter 6, which is Finding One's Pack, Belonging as Blessing. It's a story of the ugly duckling. Which is a old Hans Christian Andersen story that was first published in 1845. And it's a story, Hans Christian Andersen had a way of a lot of his stories really touched upon the orphan archetype, which would be the lost and neglected child. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss some aspects of the book today, and I will be referencing some page numbers. And just know that there's a lot of different revisions for this book. And so if the page numbers don't match up perfectly, just look around either before or after, and you should be able to find some of the passages that I referenced today. So this book, Clarissa, is she talks that it's a root story, which means that it contains something so fundamentally important to our human development that if it's not integrated, you're gonna be held up. You know, your progression is gonna be shaky. It's the core mother. It talks about the core mother wound at the root. And let's see. I'm not going to read too much of the story. It's a rather long chapter, but you know, for me, the gist of it is asking this question: have you ever felt unacceptable? And I think most of us would probably say yes. And being in touch with our wild woman, we live in such a masculine society that when the masculine is absent, often we feel like we don't belong, and it makes me kind of sad to say that. But if you really drop into that statement again, it's this feeling of being unacceptable. And to acknowledge that we do live in such a masculine society. And when the masculine is absent, how we as wild women, we can have this lost feeling. And saying that makes me mad. But anyway, I'll go on. So think back to when you were a young girl, and how when as young girls we played with our instinctive nature, and often we would experience significant suffering as women in the early life, and we would then take on these negative images in our own psyche, and that eventually affects our own mother and our young girl. And because we begin to believe these negative images. And so Clarissa, in this chapter, she talks about the various kinds of mothers. And before I get in, I'm just going to kind of refresh your memory of the basics of the ugly duckling story. It's about a mother duck who is sitting on her egg, and there's one larger egg in the group. It's the last to hatch. The village tells her, you know, that's an odd egg. Why would you waste your time sitting on it? And the mother says, well, I did it this long. I might as well, you know, finish it out. And the beginning of the story is the only part where they talk about the father and how the father is absent, that maybe the father will visit them. And that's important to note. So the mother sits on this larger egg. Eventually it cracks, and realizing that the duckling, she looks at it and notices that it's bigger and odd looking with weird veins and stuff. And so the mother is a little hesitant and eventually takes them to the water and discovers that this more ugly duckling can swim just like the other ones, very eloquent in the water. And so she decides to claim the duckling as her own. He seems odd looking, but he is swimming like the others, and he is my own. And the story goes on with the journey of the ugly duckling. He is outcast by the mom, by others, lots of questions and inquiry, until eventually the ugly duckling discovers that he was born into the wrong family, that he's actually a swan and not a duck. So that's a very quick summarization of the story. There's lots of ins and outs in the story, so definitely read it. And so just to, in the essence of time, because the purpose of these videos is to tickle your brain a little bit, to go deeper. And so I'm going to pull out different aspects of the chapter in hopes that it can provide another angle in to see it from a different perspective, or maybe gain clarity within the book. So Clarissa writes about 3 different types of mothers, the different kinds of mothers. And by exampling these mothers and going into weaving it into the story, what we can do is begin to access, you know, our own internal mother. So you can reference your external mother that you had as a young girl, but then you can also start bringing this in internally to teach you how to sustain some of these qualities, or maybe making any adjustments that you might need to make. So the first one so I'm going to list them. So the 3 are the ambivalent mother, the collapsed mother, and the child of the unmothered. And so I'm a huge fan of Carl Jung, and in Jungian society or psychology, this is the entanglement is called the mother complex. It's often really attaches to the core part of the woman's psyche. And it's really important to recognize, again, keep in mind that Clarissa calls this the root story. And so if our own mothering is not recognized for its condition, we're not going to be able to strengthen it, and our life is going to be a little bit shaky. And so what we need to do is first create awareness, and then look to strengthen and perhaps even dismantle, and so that we can begin again. So it becomes like a rebirth as we cycle through these various mothers. So the first one I'm just gonna really touch upon this really lightly, pulling out different aspects. Again, there's way more in the book. I encourage you to read it. So the first one is the ambivalent mother. The ambivalent mother is somewhat tainted by her child being different. So in the story, the ugly duckling is bigger, the veins look different, and the ambivalent mother, initially she stands firm for the duckling otherness. And in her standing firm, she begins to jeopardize her own safety and her own questioning inside of her. So she's projecting outside of her that this is my duckling. She belongs to me. I am going to take care of it. But inside, this mother, the ambivalent mother, begins to, she has some internal questions, but outwardly she's standing firm. And so the ambivalent mother, it's a way to show our instinctual love for our children, and the outpouring of acceptance and self-preservations, and but it also has a little fear that you might be punished. And so a mother with a child that is different really has to have a lot of endurance, because she's hit with all these messages within society that one of her ducklings is different. And she can see it with her own eyes, but this instinctual love is so present, and it really requires a lot of endurance, and it's exhausting. And in order to take all that on, you really do, as a mother, need to take on and find the own masculine qualities. Because keep in mind, the masculine qualities of your wild woman is important, because we live in such a masculine dominated society, and that when we're in touch with our own masculine, that we feel this sense of acceptance within ourselves. So then the next mother that Clarissa talks about is the collapsed mother. And this collapsed mother is like, so she endured this oblivion phase, and then all of a sudden she collapses. And in the book, Clarissa writes, she cries to the little duckling, "I wish you were far away." And the tortured duck then runs away from his mother. And so when a mother collapses in this way, she has lost her sense of self. And so the way to cause a mother to collapse in this way is emotionally. She just folds into herself. And so for generations, again, this folding into just being so emotional, I can't handle it anymore. The shaming that comes with emotions. And so the reality is, and it pains me every time to speak this, but it's so true. For generations, women have accepted the role that to be a legitimate human is to be married to a man. And without the masculine protection, it can feel a little vulnerable, and the mother is vulnerable. Again, the masculine is the dad, and this is absent, and we don't even know if she's married or not. But to have this illegitimate child on top of the absence of a masculine protection, this crumbling within the women mothering psyche is we become vulnerable, and then we go in and we collapse. And again, I get emotional because I wish that was different. I wish for us as women that we didn't need to rely on this masculine protection, and to more able to find this masculine protection within ourselves, or to recognize it in our society. So I continue to hope and pray that we will, as women, rise and find this balance within ourselves. And so it's just really ironic in the story that the ugly duckling's father is only mentioned once. And I just think that's important to note. And then the last one is the child of the mother of the unmothered. So sometimes the frail mother is herself a swan. That maybe the mother herself doesn't feel like she belongs, who has raised these ducks. She has not been able to find her true identity. So, and sometimes the child mother of the unmothered, when their own children go through adolescence, the mother begins to realize her lack of identity of self, perhaps, is often seemingly what happens with this. So the solution is this idea of a strong mother and a strong child. So even if you have the most wonderful mother, or maybe you'll eventually maybe find another mother, like a wild or wise woman, or just another feminine in circles. And on page 182, I love what Clarissa writes about the lilacs. So lilacs produce what is called a sucker system. So each tree is rooted, is a root that the offspring can service, so to feed off of. And so this is a psychic pattern and promise for those with little or no, or have maybe had a really awful, torturous mothering, that we're kind of like the lilacs, and all the feminine mothers, we can feed off of each other and nourish each other through this sucker system. So because at the end of the day, we can all grow independently and still thrive. So in kind of just wrapping up, again, this is a long story. The story goes on to how we can look for love in all the wrong places. So the duck leaves his mom and looks for love in all the wrong places, wanting to belong, sees the swan from afar and sees the beauty, but again, he's with the ducks, and it's like, no, I'm too ugly to look like that. And then, how we judge our appearances and not looking right, comparatively to what we see in others. And then the part in the book where the ugly duckling is not acting like he's too big and he's clumsy, and he knocks over the flower, and everyone's yelling at him. And then the phase where the duckling has that frozen feeling. I'm sure we've all felt that. So the ugly duckling is frozen in the pond, and so the ice in this story represents the creativity of the woman and how we must be break to let the soul free. So, and then I love the quote on page 185, and that reads, generally a thing can't freeze if it's moving. So just you think that your creations are weird or not valuable, but sometimes just not to get frozen or stuck is to go ahead and create anyway. And then lastly, in the story, it talks about the passing stranger. I think we've all had those where just at the right time they come and they give us some sort of message and they leave just as quickly as they come. But what they provide for us is they free us. They free us from ourselves because they swoop in, and often just as quickly they swoop out. And so I wanted to read on page 185, or actually no, 188. And it talks about exile and wolves. So let's see if I can get the right start point. So when women the context is talking about women in exile. And so if she's an ugly duckling and she is unmothered, her instincts have not been sharpened. She learns instead by trial and error, usually many trials, many errors. But there is hope for you. You see, the exile never gives up. She keeps going till she finds the guide, the scent, till she finds the trail, till she finds home. Wolves never look more funny than when they have lost the scent and scramble to find it again. They hop in the air, they run in circles, they plow up the ground, and their noses, they scratch the ground, they run ahead, then back, and then they stand still. They look as if they have lost their wits, but what they are really doing is picking up all the clues they can find. They're biting them down out of the air, they're filling up their lungs with the smells at ground level and at shoulder level. They are tasting the air to see who has passed through it recently. Their eyes are rotating like satellite dishes, picking up transmissions from afar. Once they have these clues in place, they know what to do next. Though a woman may look scattered when she has lost touch with life, she values most and is running about trying to recapture it. She is most often gathering information, taking a taste of this, grabbing up a paw of that, and as the very most one night briefly explains to her what is that she was doing. Then let her be. As soon as she processes all the information from the clues she gathered, she'll be moving in intentional manner. Then the desire for membership in the uncombed cat and cross-eyed hen club will diminish to nothing. So I really love that passage there. I think it says a lot in trust, and that exile is not necessarily a bad thing. In looking to our ancestors and the wolves and the mothers, that we are gatherers, that is in our blood as women, and to embrace that. So in closing, my notes is to be a child beyond its time is to be not be so over-identified with being an injured orphan archetype, and to see the beauty and to recognize the root in knowing where you are, either your external mother or your internal mother, and to really cultivate that. Because like I said, this is an important aspect to not be spinning out of control, that our roots need to be nourished. And even if you don't have a mother that you can go to, think of the lilacs and the sucker system, and seek the mother that can give you the wisdom that you lost as a young girl, so that you can heal and you can get off the shaky ground in knowing that you are beautiful, and you are the beautiful swan that was swimming in ducks. So thank you, everyone. Check out my website, daniellewildsoul.com. I'm also on Facebook. Started doing a group page, Wild Soul Community. Look it up. And until next time, thank you. Have a great day.